Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Yep, now we know why the NFL did not want the Raiders. The Raiders. Going back to Los Angeles, they didn't want gangs in Compton and other places co-opting the Raiders uniform and apparel. And did you see it? Gwen Ifill actually asked Crazy Bernie if he was thwarting history by trying to deny. She must listen to this show. They have to all be listening to this show.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Yes, sir, Bob. Here we are to wrap up another busy broadcast week on the one and only Excellence in Broadcasting Network, hosted by me, your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, for the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. I don't know about you all, but I am zapped. I am worn out. This is as intense as it gets, and I'm actually happy that Friday is here, even though I'm eating this stuff up. Now remember, Open Line Friday, as I mentioned yesterday, you can ask any question you want, can be related to anything, does not have to be about politics. That's what Open Line Friday is for. So we go to the phones, it can be anything. You don't have to stray from politics. My point is that it doesn't have to be that. If there's something else bothering you, if there's something else that's interesting to you that you want to talk about, I mean, have at it. That's what Open Line Friday is for. I'll tell you, this is getting painful to have to watch this stuff. The Democrat debate. It is just, you know, ladies and gentlemen, after watching this thing last night, I do not understand why in the world the Democrat Party wants immigrants into this country. This country sucks so bad. This country is so horrible. This country is so decrepit. Why in the world would they want anybody to come here and live here? It's a mind-boggling thing to listen to these people talk about this country and then to try to outdo each other. Here we have Grandma and Grandpa gumming it up last night again, trying to outtalk each other. And depending on where you look, I've seen both sides represented. I've seen analysts who think that Hillary was just formidable, unstoppable, outclassed Crazy Bernie, and other people think she looked listless, lethargic, and barely even there. I don't think it matters. The Democrat game is rigged with these superdelegates. I told you from the get-go that Bernie's not going to be the nominee, and Bernie even knows it. And Harry Reid, Dingy Harry, they interviewed him about all this, and Dingy Harry had a couple of interesting things to say. Dingy Harry said, look, we have to do superdelegates. We have to do superdelegates. And I would love it if we get to the convention and we didn't have a nominee until we get to the convention. That would be fun. I would love to go back to those days. But then they said, well, Harry, why do you have to do superdelegates? He said, because 97% of the population of Iowa is white and 96% of the population of New Hampshire is white. We can't have people in those states with such a overwhelming advantage choosing the nominee in the first two races out of the gate. There aren't any black people that live there. There aren't any people of color that live there voting. It's totally unrepresentative of the country. It's unfair. So we have to do the superdelegates to kind of balance it out. So the superdelegates can represent the minorities who do not live in Iowa or New Hampshire. And here's just off the top of my head, stream of consciousness thoughts. I'm watching these people go on and on and on about immigration. One of the points they both kept making was, as they push the idea of amnesty, that the Republicans and anybody else who opposes them, all they want to do is split up families. We can't allow that. We can't allow families to be split up. Why, the family is crucial. It's a crucial structure. And one of the reasons that we should not be deporting anybody here is that we're breaking up and busting up families, and it's just unconscionable. And don't you just love it how these two people, the Democrat Party at large, so concerned about the importance of illegal immigrant families. But they never stop to think, do they, of the demise of the black family brought about by their very own destructive policies. I'm going to tell you, the Democrat Party is one of the most destructive forces in this country. We are all dealing with it, but the black family has been seemingly targeted by the Democrat Party because the Democrat Party has no problem becoming the husband in the black family structure, meaning they'll provide for the family if the husband's nowhere around. Bill Clinton comes along, and he's the reason so many African-American men are in prison, and here's his wife up there saying what she's saying about it. Nobody ever calls her on it. Nobody ever asks her about it. So they tell us that we must not deport these illegal immigrants because we cannot destroy their families. Yet no mention of the total destruction of the black family by liberalism. By the way, I'm not the only one saying that. I've had African Americans call this program for 27 years who have made that claim, made that charge. There doesn't seem to be any attention paid to the black family. Whether you want to agree with me or not about whether liberalism has destroyed the black, and I don't think it's arguable. When the federal government is willing to take on the role of husband, the husband doesn't need to hang around and doesn't. It's not arguable, folks. But nevertheless, we never hear the Democrat Party talk about the family structure at all, except in the context of illegal immigrants. Even when talking about non-minority family members, what does Hillary Clinton say? It takes a village to raise a child. The whole concept of family unit is under assault. The Children's Defense Fund, all of these Democrat programs designed to take kids away from fathers who may not be qualified to raise their own children. The desire by the Democrat Party under the auspices of the federal government and state governments to come in, child and family services, and take the kids away on the basis that the parents are not qualified, not competent. And we all know the reason for this, the indoctrination of these young kids, because the Democrats don't trust the families to do this, because the Democrat Party doesn't trust the average citizen. It holds the average citizen in contempt as being incompetent and incapable. But when it comes to the illegal immigrant families, why the Democrats care about them. They don't seem to care about the black family. They don't care about anybody else's family. They're not worried about busting anybody else's family up. They're not worried about the federal government taking on the role of parent in any busted up family that they have made possible. But the illegal immigrant families, well, they matter somehow. That's something of great importance to them. Bernie Sanders says that 1 in 4 African-American men have a chance ending up in prison. You know what stat he did not mention? He did not point out that those same mythical African-American young men, 1 in 4, have a chance to end up in prison. Half of them don't even have a chance of being born. The abortion rate, African-American community, 50%, folks. The Democrat Party, why do you think they care so much about illegal immigrants, immigration in general? They need a permanent underclass. And the Democrat Party's aborting a significant percentage of its own future voter base. They got to get them replaced somewhere. The overall take on the debate. We've got an audio soundbite here of a montage. It's striking, folks. America's a terrible country. We're just downright horrible. We may be one of the absolute worst places with all the phony, false promises and the rigged systems of any country on earth. The economy's in horrible shape, especially for minorities, especially for women, especially for Muslims, as Hillary calls them, especially for the LGBT crowd. And America is really unfair to criminals who are behind bars, who face discrimination at every turn. Nobody has any hope. Nobody has a chance. Iraq, Nixon, and Henry Kissinger have rigged the game. I'm not making it up. That actually came up last night. Iraq, Henry Kissinger, and Nixon. And half of the Democrat audience, who's Kissinger? Who are they talking about? They don't even know who Henry Kissinger is. Women are underpaid routinely because of sexist American men who hate them. Racism has gotten worse under Obama, except they don't ever say under Obama. And every one of these problems, Hillary and or Bernie can fix. And again, it's striking. 7 years into what was supposed to be utopia, nirvana, 7 years, and the Limbaugh theorem is on full display. These people running around complaining about all these things that have happened as though they've got nothing to do with it. And it's all on them. And the poor LGBT people, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, you know how bad it is for them in America? They get married on the weekend, and if that's discovered at work, they get fired on Monday when they get back to work because America sucks. Because America discriminates. Not only that, a bakery will likely not bake them their cake. And not only that, a photo studio will likely not show up and take pictures of the wedding. But still they go ahead with it. They get married. They have the party. The boss finds out about it. They go to work on Monday or whenever the honeymoon's over, and bam, they're zapped. They're out of there because America sucks. Muslims, as Hillary pronounces it, face a difficult life in America. They are routinely discriminated against, despite being on the front lines in the post-9/11 world. They're doing some of the greatest work done in America. They're some of the greatest citizens, some of the most devoted, some of the most loyal, and they are some of the most screwed because America sucks. Healthcare. Healthcare is so bad, it isn't working. It is an absolute disaster, despite being fixed by Obamacare. Healthcare needs more money. Healthcare needs a total overhaul. Healthcare needs somebody who actually cares. And all of this is stated, folks. I'm not making this up. This is all stated. You're sitting there saying, wait a minute. We just reformed healthcare. The government just took it over. The government just took over 1/6 of the U.S. economy under the pretext of fixing it all. That happened in 2010. It's 2016. 5-6 years later, it's worse than ever if you listen to these people. America is a vast prison. Oh, yes. No matter which direction you look, north, south, east, west, up, down, America is a prison. Innocent people locked up for petty infractions. And, of course, minorities hardest hit. Illegal immigrants, they're not illegal. They are the victims of discrimination, xenophobia, racism, and bigotry. They're not illegal. We need to encourage more of them to come here, especially poor women and children. We need more poor women. We need more poor children to come here because America sucks. Why do we want them to come here? After going through all that's wrong with America, and it's not a pretty picture. There's nothing positive, folks. There wasn't one positive thing. Why would you want anybody to come here to live in this hellhole? Unless you hated them and wanted to get even with them for something. No, I'm not kidding. Even though our economy sucks, even though we have no jobs, even though there's no health care, it's not working. And when you add to it, the Republicans don't like them. Why would you want them to come? What kind of compassion is that? Would you invite somebody over to your house that's leaking, that stinks, that has animal feces all over the place and half the population's ex-cons? No. Why would you invite them to your country when you see it that way? The rich, they're the only ones benefiting from America. And all their money, every dime they've got has come from wealth transfers from the poor and the middle class. The rich have what they have because they've taken. I've never understood the math on this. How billionaires become billionaires by taking money from people that never had it. But that's what they told us last night. That's what Hillary and Crazy Bernie told us. Bankers, big oil, big pharma, big box retail, they're all corrupt. All the institutions are corrupt. The only pure people in America are Democrat politicians. They're the only ones unsullied, the only ones uncorrupted, the only ones capable of true compassion and caring. Truth is, they're the architects of all this, as you well know. Here's our montage that somewhat summarizes all of this. And keep in mind, as you listen to this, these are the architects of the misery they are whining about here.
Aligned with a corrupt campaign finance system is a rigged economy, working longer hours for lower wages.
Americans haven't had a raise in 15 years.
Very rich are getting richer. Our wastewater plants, our rail, our airports are disintegrating. The highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country.
Really systemic racism.
Low wages and high unemployment.
Inhumane treatment visited upon families, waking them up in the middle of the night, rounding them up.
You judge a nation not by the number of millionaires and billionaires it has, but by how we treat the most vulnerable and fragile people in our nation. We're not doing particularly well.
Poison in the water, poor minors who are being left out, LGBT people who get married on Saturday and get fired on Monday. We have work to do.
We have a lot of work to do.
There it is. LGBT people get married on Saturday, get fired on Monday, don't get a wedding cake, and don't get any wedding pictures. We laugh at this stuff, but you got it. 40% of the country minimum eats this up. 40% of the country buys this. Hook, line, and sinker. And by the way, I'm convinced that these people listen to this program because it was earlier this week that I accused Hillary Clinton of racism and bigotry because not only did she try to stop the first black guy from becoming president, that would be Barack Hussein. Now she's attempting to stop the first Jewish guy from becoming president. And they were asked this question last. Bernie Sanders was asked the question. That's why I know they listen. They were worried that it worked, so Gwen Ifill had to turn it around. Bernie, are you worried you are thwarting history here by denying Mrs. Clinton a chance to be the first woman? It was, folks. They knew damage was done with my little joke, and they had to try to correct it last night. It was great. I think Hillary Clinton, given the way she and Bernie Sanders describe America, it's unkind, and it's certainly not compassionate, and it's exploitative. Look at how she's pushing for all these poor immigrants to come to the U.S., and why does she want them here? All she wants is replacement people for the people the Democrats are aborting. She needs a permanent underclass. They need votes. She is willing to bring poor, uneducated, unskilled people into a hellhole of a country for her own power and personal benefit. And every other Democrat is the same. I am not exaggerating, and I'm not just trying to make a point. After describing this country the way these two did last night, why would you want anybody to come here? Why wouldn't you want people to be able to escape this? Certainly you wouldn't want people to come here and be thrown into this mess unless you wanted to exploit them. Unless you don't really care about them, unless what you really want is just their votes, unless you want to make them your dependents. You don't really want to improve their lives. You just want to turn them into dependent on you. This is the height of insult. This is Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders admitting that all they care about these people for is to use them. Here is Gwen Ifill asking Crazy Bernie if he is standing in the way of history.
Senator, do you worry at all that you will be the instrument of thwarting history, as Senator Clinton keeps claiming that she might be the first woman president?
Well, I think from a historical point of view, somebody with my background, somebody with my views, somebody who has spent his entire life taking on the big money interest, I think a Sanders victory would be of some historical accomplishment as well.
Come on, Bernie, you going to put that up against the first female president? Don't even mention that you're Jewish. The question needs to be asked of Hillary Clinton. She's the one on record. She is the one who already has a track record and history of trying to deny minorities their rightful place in this country. Barack Hussein Obama, the Reverend Jackson, who at one point wanted to be president. Her husband gets in the way. Now she tries to stop Obama, and now she's trying to stop the first Jewish guy from becoming president. And they ask the Jewish guy if he's the one being unfair. You want to rig a game? Do it that way. Now, here it is. Here's the story about the NFL. I saw this earlier this week. It's in the stack of things unrelated to the campaign, and that's a huge stack. There's so much good stuff piling up in there that has nothing to do with the campaign, and I've set it aside because everybody's focus right now is on the presidential race. But one of these things, the Los Angeles market has not had a football team since 1990, when the Raiders went back to Oakland. And it's been great for people in L.A. because they haven't had a home team they have to watch on TV. Which means if the home team sucks, you have to watch the home team games, home and road. L.A. hasn't had to do that. L.A.'s gotten the best games on TV, over-the-air broadcast, every weekend. That's going to change now. Now they've got to watch the Rams. But the NFL said, look, it's the number 2 market. We cannot not be there. So this long, arduous process began to select a couple teams max, one team to go there, maybe 2. The way it's ended up, the St. Louis Rams have left and they're going to go to Los Angeles, going to go back to Los Angeles. Stan Kroenke, the owner, has promised to build this massive new facility in Inglewood and near the airport, near LAX. And the owners saw his presentation and said, this is incredible. This is just incredible. Plus all the relocation fees, $550 million to move your team. You have to pay to the leagues. It's a deal they couldn't turn down. There was an alternative deal in Carson, California. It involved the Raiders and the San Diego Chargers going and occupying one stadium. And that was thought to be the deal that everybody preferred until Kroenke made his presentation on January 12th and blew the Carson deal out of the water. So the way it's ended up is that the San Diego Chargers, who've had trouble getting a new stadium in San Diego, which is said to be due to the people of San Diego unwilling to use public money to help build a new stadium. The Chargers were given a year to make a deal with Kroenke and decide to move to L.A. with him, become the Los Angeles Chargers, 2 teams in that new stadium. And then that depended whether or not they wanted to take equity in the whole operation, become partners with Kroenke, or just tenants. So they had to put that deal together. And in the process of all of this happening, it was learned why the league opted for Kroenke and did not go for the Carson initiative, which had the Chargers and the Raiders there. In a comprehensive look at the furious battle for Los Angeles among the Rams, Chargers, and Raiders, one passage alludes to the concern regarding Raiders fans as follows, quote, most owners wanted to avoid a Raiders return to Los Angeles because they still hate Al Davis, even though he's passed away. Oh, I can say something now, by the way. Owing to Al Davis burning bridges, the league, even though many of the owners were not even owners when Al Davis was, they still hate the guy. Constantly suing the league, Pete Rozelle and all that. Plus this, most owners wanted to avoid a Raiders return to Los Angeles because of the co-opting of Raiders team apparel by Southern California gangs. Concerns so deep that some wouldn't even consider Carson. The bottom line, what's been revealed here is that deep in the bowels of NFL hearings, meetings, somebody said, we don't want the Raiders back anywhere in L.A. Carson, Inglewood, Southern California, we don't want them anywhere because gangs here are going to co-opt them and the Raiders are going to end up wearing gang apparel and the gangs are going to end up wearing Raiders apparel, and we don't want this kind of an image in the NFL. Now, let me give you some of you probably know this, but others of you might not. And it's not just true of the National Football League. Have you noticed, like, for those of you fans of Rutgers, what's the name of the Rutgers? Scarlet Knights or something. Their color is red. UCLA, powder blue. Have you noticed that now and then they wear all black uniforms or all black jerseys? Do you know why this is? You don't know why this is? No, because the players want this, because black is an acknowledged gang color. That's why so many NFL teams have a third alternative jersey that has black. The Detroit Lions never wore black in 100,000 years until a couple years ago. The Carolina Panthers in the Super Bowl, their colors are not black. They're Columbia blue and silver and white. All of a sudden, the past couple, 3 years, they've had black. Baltimore Ravens, purple and white, never black, but all of a sudden they've got black. And the reason for this is that, but my point here is the NFL is worried about something that's already happened. And I know the people that don't know this or hearing this are going to think, my God, this Limbaugh guy's off his feet. Before you challenge me on this, I challenge you. Do your own work on this. Google search it, whatever. And there is no question. And by the way, some of this is even pushed by the manufacturers of the apparel, which is either Adidas, depending on the team or league, or Nike. But, I mean, the point is, it's already happened. I didn't know it. When all these teams started adopting alternative jersey colors as black or putting black somewhere in a uniform predominantly when they had never, ever had black as part of the color scheme. And I saw it referenced by a number of sports writers who acknowledged that this was the subtle reason. Never announced that this is why. You'll never find a story that announces this is why. It's just the players wanted it. Coaches want to keep the players happy in this kind of regard. If wearing black makes them feel different, more dominant, whatever, fine. We don't care. So put it in the color scheme, petition the league. Takes a couple years, change the uniform or add an alternative color, and bammo, you're in there. Here's Tony in Helen, Ohio, as we start on the phones. Always starting the phones in the first hour on Open Line Friday. It's great to have you, Tony. Hi.
Hi, Rush. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Hey, reason I'm calling is I know you love to discuss when a conservative gets one over on the liberal media.
Oh, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
One of our favorite times in history when that happens.
Well, what I'm referencing is this this ad that Ted Cruz had just put together. This I think it's called Conservative Anonymous, but beyond that, it happened to include an actress who actually had been in some softcore porn in the past, and the internet ran with that. Every article about Ted Cruz references the fact that he had to pull the ad because it had a softcore porn actress in it. But the great thing about it is...
Wait, say it again. Softcore porn.
There you go.
Softcore porn. Say it yourself. Softcore porn.
And the great thing about it is he pulled the ad, is no longer paying for the ad, but it's running viral right now, getting free advertising.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they just acted antithetical to their...
So you think it's a brilliant move. Cruz puts together an ad with a softcore... Say it. Softcore porn... Say it.
Softcore porn star.
Right, so he puts an ad with one of those in there, and it's discovered. He immediately yanks the ad when he finds out there's a soft porn core actress in there. And now, have you seen the Cruz ad with the porn babe in it? No, where is it? And it's viral now. So you're saying it's a brilliant Cruz maneuver to put this character in the ad, have it discovered as his ad.
Well, I'm not saying it was intentional.
Well, then it couldn't be a good trick. If it's not intentional, you can't credit Cruz for a brilliant trick.
Well, by mistake or by hook or by crook, he got the mainstream media.
Let me tell you something. Well, yeah, he did, but yeah, in a manner of speaking. Look, there's another Cruz ad out there that if this were television, I would show you. And you remember there's a movie, Office. It was a satire on life in an office. Not The Office, not the NBC TV show. It was a movie. Might have been Office Space. Yeah. Anyway, there's an ad, and it's credited to Cruz. Now, in the movie, the people in the office their frustration and their dislike and their anger and their futility is represented by a fax machine that never works. It either runs out of paper or it gets paper jams or something, and it's constantly stopping them from getting anything done. And so they take this fax machine outside into a field with a baseball bat, 3 of them, and they just beat the thing to pieces. That's right, I thought. It's Office Space. Well, the Cruz ad does not have Cruz in it. The Cruz ad has Hillary and 2 cronies taking a server, an email server, out into the field and beating it to smithereens with a baseball bat in a direct parody of what happened in the movie The Office Space, where they destroy a fax machine. The Cruz ad has Hillary destroying an email server. Now, I have looked at reviews of this ad, and some people think, it's a brilliant ad. Oh, my God, this is one of the best ads that has run. And other people, how can it be good? If you don't know about Hillary's email scandal, this ad's not going to make any sense to you. And there's nothing in the ad that explains Hillary has an email scandal. That's left to the knowledge of the viewer. In addition, so as far as I've been able to tell, the ad is only running on MSNBC. Of course, it's gone viral now. And MSNBC is crediting it to the Cruz campaign, but there are none of the usual disclaimers on the ad. But Cruz is being credited for it. So, look, our crack staff, Coco and the gang up at rushlimbaugh.com, will find this, and we'll link to it there, El Quico, so that you can see it yourself. Because it is, if you understand everything going on, if you've seen Office Space, if you've seen that scene where they beat up the fax machine, and if you understand Hillary's got a problem with her email server, this ad will be uproariously funny and brilliantly creative to you. By the way, this black uniform color business, it's not just the National Football League. Some universities have been forced to change or to add black to the uniform, usually at the jersey, in order to be able to recruit players. Players have demanded, or they're not going to go to the school. Folks, the NFL, they have to know this idea that they want to keep the Raiders out of L.A. because they're worried about gangs co-opting Raiders apparel. Raiders apparel is already, can't get more. I mean, it's black and silver, and it's got pirate and knight up there with the knife in the mouth and so forth. I mean, it's black hole, a fan base in the Oakland Coliseum. I just think it's the horse is out of the barn on this one. Here's Mike in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Mike, great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hey, Rush, man, you rock. I've been listening to you since 1991.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks much.
You bet. Listening to the debate last night, I was laughing because I'm thinking of the Clintons and how they basically got Bernie, the leadership of the Democrats, got Bernie to run so that they could make Hillary look centrist. And I just see this totally backfiring on her because the fake centrist that she is, he can't out-left the leftist.
Let me ask you a question. You make it sound like Bernie's campaign is all planned and is. Well, no. So I'm asking you. Do you think Bernie's really not serious about this? As he's agreed to be a placeholder to make Hillary look better or tougher?
He's a true winner here. Because here's why. Way back when this is all being planned out, and you got to think that the president, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Clintons are sitting there, hey, what are we going to do to win this? And, let's put Bernie up there. He'll make Hillary look centrist, which everybody believes you need to get elected. So Bernie's standing there going, why? You're going to use me. And they say, sure, but you get to legitimize your views to more people in our country and move our country, the body politic, in your direction. So it was a win for him, too. Whether or not it was realistic for him to become president, he gets his goals.
Yeah, understand all that. What I'm asking you is, do you think that Bernie Sanders was approached and said, Bernie, we want you to pretend to run for president. Be who you are. Try as hard as you want to win, but you're there to make Hillary look a little bit more moderate or centrist. Do you think, or did he decide to do this on his own because he really wants to be president?
Well, I think he really wants to be president. He's putting everything into it. But I think the leadership came to him and put this on a platter for him. And why would he say no? I think it's in his heart just the same. I think he believes our country is ready for this approach. I mean, he wants to give away more than Hillary wants and really do it. So I think he's a true believer, and he wants.
There's no question he's a true believer. I don't. My question is how serious is he really? Because the superdelegate thing, that's where this game is rigged. He blew her away in New Hampshire, and she ends up 9 more delegates. He couldn't beat her more decisively than he did. Nowhere else could he beat her more decisively. If he got 60 and she got 38 and she wins delegate count by 9, you telling me this isn't rigged? It's obviously rigged, and that's what the superdelegate process is for. The superdelegate process on the Democrat side is for the leaders of the party to guarantee the person they want gets the nomination no matter what happens in these primaries. It would take an utter collapse on the part of Hillary Clinton. Now, what's happening, you're right, Hillary is blowing this. If there's a strategy here to make her look like a centrist, if the strategy is to have crazy Bernie be crazy wacko leftist so that Hillary can look unlike she's that and more moderate and more reasonable, she's getting into an argument with him over who can be further left. If that's the strategy, she herself is blowing this because she has entered the fray as, I'm a better liberal than Bernie. I will go farther left than Bernie will. Whenever Bernie scores with some wacko progressive point, Hillary is right in there saying, I'm the real progressive in this race, and I have done what Bernie says he wants to do, and I've been there, and I've already made it. So she's not taking advantage here to occupy the center. She's in a knockdown, drag-out with the guy to own the left. Now, this to me represents just a golden opportunity for the Republicans. Whether they will seize that opportunity, that's a whole nother question, but it certainly is there. The Republican campaign fireworks. Donald Trump says that he's going to go positive now. He's pulling back all the negative ads on Cruz. Rubio is feisty. John Kasich is worried that Jeb Bush is ruining the family legacy by going negative. Jeb's bringing in George W. Bush next week into South Carolina. So the Republican side really percolating. We'll get to it when we get back. America's real anchorman. Among all the other things we do on this program, you know what else we do? We do the news. We tell you what's happening. As much and probably better than so-called news networks. In addition to all the brilliant opinion that occurs here. It's a one-stop shop, America's anchorman, America's truth detector, and it is Friday.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday!
And there's something else we do here. We combine serious discussion of issues and the news with humor, sometimes irreverent humor. Credibility on both sides. Very rare to find that combination in major American media today. Here's the phone number, 800-282-2882. Open Line Friday. If you're new to the program, if you are a millennial, or anybody new, doesn't matter. Open Line Friday, call and talk about anything. And know this, I like having conversations with people. I am the politest host in America. Callers are not used as props on this program. In fact, the role of callers on this program is to make the host look good, because it's the host that determines the success or failure of the program. The caller's job is to make the host look good, and that does not mean to call here with idolatratic praise or any of that. It means you be so good and so inspiring that the host becomes even better. That's what it means. because meeting and surpassing audience expectations every day is the objective here. Okay, you got it? 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. One thing here, folks, I know that every time there's a Democrat debate, we tend to laugh about it and joke about it, which is, I think, a protective measure for it's scary what these people believe, and that's my point here. I don't want anybody to think, and it amazes me that anybody could after as many years I've been doing this. But I check email during the breaks, and there's some people think, you're not taking this seriously enough, Russ. These people are really posing a. I think of all people know that. But it's a long campaign. People's emotional reservoirs are only so deep. And they're going to empty out long before we get to November. People's emotional reservoirs are going to empty and refill numerous times. I don't think there's anybody more attuned to the clear and present danger that we face with either of these two, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, because we face it with Barack Obama. And I mean it. I'm not trying to be clever or come up with a soundbite or something somebody finds pithy that they want to repeat. I believe the Democrat Party is a major destructive force in our country today. And the evidence is just to listen to these two people. Now, the tendency here is to come here and the next day report on it and crack jokes and make fun of them. That's what we've always done here. But one of the things that I have learned over all of these years, making fun of some of the really just far out, wacko, insane stuff. My mistake all these years, I failed to comprehend just how many Americans didn't think it was funny, that believed it. In large part, students, primarily college students, but high school as well, who graduate believing this stuff because they end up having it taught to them. I remember, I'll give you an illustration of this. Whenever this was, it was sometime back in the 90s. The first week or month or whatever that Media Matters for America went live, I was their clickbait. I was who they highlighted because, like, I'm a great fundraiser for the left. That's why I'm in all their fundraising, because they hate me. And they use me to scare people. That's why Howard Dean was out there in the 2004 campaign telling everybody the flag doesn't just belong to Rush Limbaugh, it belongs to all of us. It was a badge of honor to be so hated by these people. So Media Matters posted, I think it was the top 25 most outrageous things I've ever said. And I looked at it, and I wanted to thank them. It was hilarious. There were some of my greatest lines. It was some of the funniest stuff I've ever said. Well, lo and behold, what I didn't get was that the numbskulls, the lunatic fringe that reads Media Matters, that just made them outraged and livid. They're unable to spot satire when they are the targets. They're unable to laugh at parody or any humor, particularly when they are the targets. But even if they're not the targets, these are not people that are normal in the sense that they want to enjoy life, because they don't. Their lives are spent immersed in misery to one degree or another, and practically all of it is self-made, self-imposed, and self-manufactured. It's their natural state. And I've gone through this a couple of times, the psychological makeup of your average middle-class, lower middle-class Democrat voter. They really are. You can type them. They don't amount to much. They don't think they're going to amount to much, but it's because everybody else is discriminating against them or mistreating them or doesn't realize their value. And so they're just obsessed and consumed with victim status, victimization, and they lash out at all the people and forces they think are responsible for their failures and for their lack of ability to amount to anything. And when Democrat politicians come along and start punishing, start talking about how they're going to punish powerful employers, CEOs, bosses. These are the people your average middle-class, lower-middle-class Democrat thinks is responsible for his or her lot in life. They know that they're abnormal in a whole lot of weird ways, and they just can't deal with it. So their lives are a quest for normalcy and acceptance and a desire to get even with all the people who have mistreated them, laughed at them, made fun of them, or otherwise stomped on them and kept them down. So there's no joy. There's no laughter. There's not even any desire. When they win, when they get everything they want, it just makes them angrier because victory itself reminds them of their plight. But the worst thing about it for them, victory does not change their plight. It's impossible for it to. If you grow up or if you currently exist thinking that your life, which you think is miserable and shrouded in unhappiness, is the fault of others, well, okay, go out and punish whoever they are, but it's not going to change your life any, and that's what happens to them. So the Democrats come along and either raise taxes or impose regulations or deny them tax-exempt status at the IRS or some other form of punishment meted out from the authoritative branches of government. They revel in this. They love people that they blame suffering. To them, equality is misery spread equally. As such, even when they get what they want, even when Democrats come along and politically or culturally punish the people they blame for holding them back, they're never happy because their lives never change. How could it? It's no different than if you hate the rich because they've got more money than you do, but they ought not. You ought to have as much as they do. You're just as smart. You're just as clever, but the odds were stacked against you. You have something wrong with you that makes you a victim of something. Somebody has stood in your way, or a group of people have stood in your way and have purposely denied you success or whatever. So the Democrats come along and, in the economic example, promise to get even with those people. Are going to raise their taxes, are going to do whatever, and they applaud. You go for it. Class envy works every time it's tried on these people. But what happens? Okay, the government, the Democrats raise taxes on the enemies of the middle and lower middle class, average, ordinary Democrat American. And they do pay more taxes, but it doesn't change the economic circumstances of these Democrats at all. Fred Rich Guy having to forego an additional $2,000 in taxes does not mean that average, ordinary Democrats get the $2,000. They never see it. So their entire happiness depends on what they perceive to be the misery and defeat of others. And, of course, in that circumstance, it's impossible to ever be happy. That's why I've never been motivated by a desire to show those people who didn't think I had what it took when I was younger. We all have that. Every successful person in the world will tell you that there were people along the way who told them they never had a chance. They were not good enough. Everybody. It's a universal truth. Because it is true. If your motivation in life is to prove those people wrong, you can make it work if you're disciplined about it. But if you lose control of that, if that becomes your sole motivation, you're never going to be happy. Because they're never going to tell you. They're never going to apologize. They're never going to call you up and say, you know what? I thought you didn't have what it took. I thought you were never going to make it. And you know why I was wrong. Congratulations. It's never going to happen. You know what's going to happen? They're going to continue to deny that you had what it took. And they're going to claim that whatever success you've had is because of some dumb luck. It's just the way people are. So if you're motivated to succeed because you want to show your critics they were wrong, you're never going to be happy. because you're never going to get that satisfaction from them. Your motivations, your inspirations have to be more realistic, and they have to be personal. They have to be positive, related to you. And that's who these average Democrat voters are. They're not capable of that. They're not capable of self-satisfaction because their happiness, their quasi, their faux happiness depends on them thinking other people are miserable, other people are unhappy, like they are. And there are a lot of these people, folks. My point here is, watch these debates, and as crazy and insane as you and I'm telling you, I watch these debates and I think I'm listening to a foreign language. I think I'm listening to people from different country, maybe certainly a different world. I don't have anything in common with them personally, individually, politically. It's shocking. So we come in and joke about it, but the fact is, there's a lot of people who believe that what Bernie Sanders is saying is gospel. Ditto Hillary Clinton. Like that Media Matters, that first piece they posted on me. I guarantee you. Coco, don't go find it. It's not worth that. I don't want to give them the hits. I'm just telling you, when I looked at it, I was thankful. I thought, these people are making me listen. They some of my funniest, greatest lines ever. I forgot. These people don't see anything funny. They thought everything that I was quoting, a lot of it was out of context stuff or cherry pick a line here, but I knew where it came from. And if you just read all 25 of them, they were uproarious. They were like feminist, the undeniable truth of life, number 24. Feminism, and I challenge anybody to tell me this is wrong. Feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women easier access to the mainstream. There's no question about it. They hate me for that. You read that, and if you know me and understand the context in which I've said it, it's uproariously funny because it happens to be true. And good comedy requires truth, an element of truth, or it ain't going to be funny. But they were filled with things like this, that list, and they just the vitriol and the sheer unmitigated rage people felt over these things. Where I thought they were just humorous, and these people have no ability to laugh at themselves. They are intolerant of satire and jokes or even criticism aimed at them. They can dish it out. They can't take a wiffle ball's worth of a hit. And the point is, there are a lot of them. And this election coming up is about which vision of America is actually going to have a chance here to thrive. And it's scary to listen to people like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders promise what they're promising, list the problems that they list, and realize so many dunderheads in this country agree with it. So I don't want any of you to think I'm laughing it off. That's just one way of dealing with it. In fact, I even said yesterday that I think more of what these people are saying ought to become part of the Republican primary now. I understand the objective in the Republican primary is intramural, so to speak. It's Republicans against Republicans to take each other out, but that would be useful. For example, some of these Republican candidates, they're gone now. Some of them don't see the Democrats even the way you and I just described them. We know the Republican establishment doesn't. They just see the Democrats as people to, I don't really go through it again. You get the point. But I just don't want you to think, based on a couple emails I got here, I don't take these people seriously. I think I do, maybe more than you do. Back after this. Open line Friday to Chicago. Michael, glad you called, sir. Great to have you with us. Hello.
Hey, Mr. Limbaugh. Love the show.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you first of all, go Donald Trump, but I wanted to ask you about Tiger Woods. Do you think that he'll ever get out of this debacle and break Jack Nicklaus's record finally? And if not, who will come closest to it? Maybe a McIlroy, maybe Ricky Fowler, maybe a Jason Day, maybe a Spieth, Jordan Spieth.
I think Spieth, if he can maintain his consistency, but that 18 majors, we're finding out just how difficult that's going to be to break. At one time, we thought Tiger was going to blow past that and double it, maybe, if not that, blow way past it. Now, Tiger's 4 short, right? He's at 14?
Right.
Is that right? Got 4 to go. Yeah, it's a tough question. One thing I would say and answer, I don't think that Tiger is ever going to become the dominant player he was in his 20s. Now, I don't see that for a whole host of reasons. Some psychological, but many of them physical. I mean, he's just had too many injuries, too many surgeries. His swing speed is going to deteriorate now compared to the young guys, and that's swing speed and distance are crucial,
right?
As the pro game is played. But could he improve and play much better than he has the past couple of years? Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to become the dominant player he was. I don't think he's ever going into sand traps and hitting 7 irons for 212 yards just to show the field he can do it and intimidate him. And
right.
The days that Tiger intimidating the field are not, they're over, I think.
Right.
They all love him, by the way. I mean, he's very popular out there. They're not afraid of him anymore. They all want him to come back. Everybody on that tour wants Tiger Woods to come back because with him coming back comes back ratings and audience and money. They're all pulling for
the
it.
Game, yeah.
But there's always, in athletics, it's all about youth. Athletics is for the young. And it's one of those things, I don't know if somebody would have told me that my career is over when I'm 35 to 40, I don't know how psychologically I would deal with that. Now, these guys know that starting out and they go into it, but they all think they're going to be able to defy it. It's part of the makeup of who they are. They all think that it isn't going to apply to them. And every athlete has it hit them. In the NFL, when a running back turns 30, if there have been just one serious injury, the odds of getting a big contract are way, way low. But there are other things with Tiger that have happened to him that may make it very difficult for him to get back to the indomitable attitude about himself that he had. We'll be back. Don't go away. One more thing about Tiger Woods and the game of golf. And I realize that a lot of people, most people don't play the game of golf. I think there's a number 24 million is the universe of golfers. And I know this because the people in the retail golf club business, that's the number they use. They're always trying to grow that number. People that make golf clubs are at odds with the poobahs that make the rules of golf. It's a real challenge. They need people to start the game and then stay with the game. And the way people watch the game on TV, they see these guys bombing it 300 yards. They want to know what that's like. Your average duffer would love to be able to do that. And it's my contention that club manufacturers could make a driver that would not be legal, but that your average duffer who's going to play once or twice a month could go out there and hit the ball a lot farther than he does now. But the grand poobahs of golf will not permit that because of the sacred nature of the rules and all of which is understandable. But it's a conflict. I mean, the people in the retail business of golf need people joining clubs and playing the game, and it's a very, very hard game. It is. This is my point about it. For those of you who don't play it, have never played it, the aspect of it that you'll never get is the mental. It's just you. There is nobody else to rely on. There's nobody to pick you up. There's nobody to give you a day off. It's just you, and it's just your head and whatever is going on in your head. And it doesn't take much to shatter confidence. It is such a tough game. It is so hard to play this. Particularly tournament golf, winning tournament golf is next to impossible. The guys that do it well make it look easy when you watch it on TV. But even beyond the physical challenges there are playing golf, it requires athletic ability. Golf swing is akin to a pitcher and how fast they can throw a fastball. You can't teach somebody to throw it 95 miles an hour. They either born able to do it or they can't. You can't take somebody who can throw it 75 and teach them how to push off the rubber, how to lift weights, how to get it up to 95 miles. You just can't. Same thing with the swing speed of golf. You can either swing that club 100 to 110 miles an hour, or you can swing it 75 or 80. And if you can only swing at 75 or 80, you're never going to hit it farther than 240. And that's only going to be when you really flush it and connect with it. That's why they have different distances, tees, and so forth. But when you're talking about people like Tiger Woods and professionals, what goes on in their heads, the confidence, once that's gone, you could have all of the skills in the world, and if you start doubting them, it's over. And that's the risk. The most amazing thing to me about those guys is their ability to triumph over adversity. They don't win. I mean, the number of times that you play really, really well and win a tournament, look how few they are. Now, you can make a good living out there with sponsorships and so, but you still have to play really well, and it's really, really hard. And if something breaks down in your head, your confidence level gets blown up. And it can take nothing more if you're playing bad. You get to the first tee and your shot goes right in the woods, or it can ruin your round if you are not able to control your attitude, your confidence, your emotions. And when Tiger Woods owned the game of golf, the thing that amazed me most was not the physical. I mean, everybody was dazzled by that, as I was. But the performance pressure that he had going out every week, dealing with the expectations that everybody had. He does everything he does in front of the TV audience and the galleries that were there. And they've all done this. But when Tiger was at his peak, you remember all the talk, none better, this is incredible, guaranteed wins, however you remember it. It took incredible mental toughness, concentration, and the ability to deal with performance pressure week after week after week, at least weeks in which you're entered tournaments. That's what always, having played the game myself, I marvel at the people in this game that play it well. Tom Watson is playing this game well. He's well into senior status now and nearly won the British Open as a senior a few short years ago. So it can be, that's rare, though. But I know a lot of people make fun of golf and poo-poo it, but just the mental toughness and focus that's required to excel at that game. It's more fun just go out and hit the ball and have, maybe you tabulate your score or not, but you just try to have fun out there and enjoy the time you're out there and maybe hit the ball well 3 or 4 times and end up going home happy. Those guys doing it for a living, it's an entirely different thing. Here's Nathan in Clear Lake, California. It's great to have you on the program. Hi.
Hey, Rush. Thank you.
You bet.
What I wanted to talk about, you brought up the fact that the NFL has all these jerseys out, and they're alternate jerseys, and a lot of them are gang-related or can be gang-related. When I was in high school, I was actually asked to remove some of my jerseys because of the colors that they were.
Wait. You were asked, you mean you were a player?
No, I was just a fan. I played high school football like my freshman year, but I didn't get much.
So wait a minute now, you're a fan and people are asking you to change your jerseys?
Yeah. I was a Steelers fan and still bleed black and gold. But I'm up here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I had a yard supervisor say, and this was just after the Steelers beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl in 2005, 2006. And one of the guys said, "Look, Nathan, I'm going to have to ask you to remove your jersey." And I said, "Well, why?" And he says, "Because it's black and gold." And I said, "Well, what's that mean?" He says, "Well, it's Latin Kings colors." And I didn't know what the Latin Kings were, and I said, "What is that, a video game or something?" And he says, "No, it's a street gang, and those are their colors, it's black and gold." So I said, "Okay, fine." Took it off. The next day I showed up wearing a Willie Mays jersey. And same thing. He says, "You either have to turn it inside out or you got to take it off." And I said, "Okay."
Wait a minute. Willie Mays never wore a black jersey. The gangs had not infiltrated baseball by then.
Yeah, but what it was the number 24 on the back. Apparently, it's related to the 24th Street Gang or something like that.
Well, you got average people on the street telling you this stuff. Take off your Steelers jersey if it's black and gold and it's the Latin Kings. Look, that may well be. Well, I know. People get shot at over this kind of stuff. If you wear the wrong thing in the wrong gang neighborhood, yeah, you can. Particularly if you're doing it on purpose, it's like, waving red in front of a bull down in Mexico City. This is a different thing than what's going on with official team apparel. Look, folks, you're going to have to read between the lines here. I mean, I'm not going to. College recruits are telling universities they're not going to come unless there is a black jersey as part of the uniform scheme. Who are we talking about here? You have the players are the ones who want to wear black because it symbolizes something to people they care about. Okay? My only point here is for the NFL, for this to be, it's an ESPN story, so that, right, with a grain here a little bit, okay, take it with a grain of salt, but still, the word out of these NFL meetings on moving a team to L.A., they didn't want the Raiders because they're afraid that L.A. street gangs are going to co-opt the Raiders apparel, and the league doesn't want to be seen. My only point is they already are. When a team that has never had black in its color scheme ends up wearing all black. You've seen black jersey, black pants. Where do you think that comes from? Go back 10, 15, 20, 30, 100 years. That was never any team's official uniform. You had to go to college or Pop Warner to find uniform colors and arrangements like that. But Nike and Adidas have now become designers as well as manufacturers of these jerseys and so forth. So my only point here is the NFL, for all this talk about not wanting a gang takeover of the Raiders apparel. Well, have you seen over there? And that's all I'm saying. And it's not me, just me, folks. You can find this, have been written about any number of places in even the drive-by sports pages. We're back on the cutting edge. El Rushbo here on Open Line Friday at 800-282-2882. Here's Tim in Lake County, California. Great to have you, sir. I appreciate your patience.
Hey, my Ken.
Jim, you say? Jim, oh, sorry.
Ken. Yeah.
Are you from Lake County, California?
Yes, I am. Yes,
okay, well, hang on just a second. Put him back on hold. He's obviously confused. Is he back on hold? Okay, Jim, Lake County, California. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hey, Rush.
Yeah.
Hey, Limbaugh.
Hey, great to have you here.
I'm so ticked off my little gal Hillary, She's lying through Benghazi now. She's lying through her teeth about the State Department private emails. She's bringing pressure on my Crime Family Foundation, Limbaugh. I'm telling you, I'm going to fall harder than John Gotti, They're going to start looking into this. They're going to bring in, sweet little innocent children. We can all do a little jail time, Limbaugh. I tell you, don't worry. Right now, I got to go, Rush, but I'm on the tarmac now with Jeffrey Epstein and his jet. We're going down to Barbados for a little R&R, Limbaugh.
Speaking
I'll see you next week, Rush. Hey, Limbaugh, I'll call you next week, Rush.
He's on the tarmac with Jeffrey Epstein on the way to Barbados. Way to go. I've got the Epstein story here. I was going to get into this today. Jeffrey Epstein is a New York billionaire, donor to Democrats left and right. He has endowed universities with various departments, his name's on them. He was discovered to have been running a child sex ring for all intents and purposes. It was called a massage operation, but it was underage girls that he would hire and bring into his homes, and for his buddies, and treat them to whatever these girls offered. Well, Bill Clinton turned out to be one of these guys, one of Epstein's big, big friends. And Epstein flew Clinton all over the world on his airplane while Clinton ostensibly was making fundraising appearances at various disaster sites or other places. And Epstein was tried and convicted of a year, put in jail for a year, and then there was house arrest after that. And a number of people, Prince Andrew, a number of famous A-listers have been identified as being in the Epstein circle, including Bill Clinton. Now, none of the women who have come forth, now they're adults, none of them have ever said Clinton participated, but some of them have placed him on the premises. So I was thinking, Mrs. Clinton is losing women, right? The only women that Hillary Clinton's able to attract are 65 plus. This is the demographic. This is in all the polling data in New Hampshire. That's the only demographic she won. Women 65 plus. So I was thinking, the idea for Hillary Clinton to ingratiate herself to young women would be to take a personal interest in the Epstein case. The underage abuse victims. They are suing the government, saying they were kept in the dark about a sweetheart deal that Epstein got. Immunity and all that after he pleaded guilty to hiring teenagers for sex. Some of them are now trying to sue him civilly. Well, this would be a perfect example for Hillary to show that she can relate and feels bad for young women like this by joining this action against the Epstein friend. The problem is her husband's involved here. But then they can fall back. It's just sex. It's nobody's business. But wait till you hear the latest reason from the environmentalist wackos why sea levels are not rising to the destructive levels they were to have risen to by now. Wait till you hear this. It is the fastest 3 hours in media, otherwise known as the Rush Limbaugh program, here on the EIB network. On Friday, we just keep rolling here.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program, and the email address is lrushbo@eibnet.com. For a lot of people, the most depressing weekend of the year. Now, why? No football. I said for some people. Most depressing weekend, no football. A lot of people, what do I do on Sunday? What do I do? What do I do? It's especially bad for people that live in parts of the country where it's cold and snowy. It just makes it even worse. But you can get through it. There's a debate Saturday night, Republican debate coming up Saturday night. Big one ahead of the South Carolina primary. We'll have everything you need to know about that on Monday, in addition to what to think about it. I checked the email during the break, and there's some people ticked off at me today. Strange. Yeah, what do you mean? The Democrat Party's the most destructive force. You say this stuff all the time. You never back it up. That's why you're so inflammatory. Okay. So I think something like that doesn't need, even on this program, explanation and detail. But I'm happy. I am more than happy to provide it. This is my point here. I mentioned earlier that normally the desire here is just mock and laugh and make fun of these people, Hillary and Bernie, in this debate. But the problem is way too many people really, really just believe the drivel and the bilge that these people put out. I believe, liberalism, Democrat Party, whatever you want to call it, it is the most destructive force in America outside of weather calamities that are acts of God. It is an organized force. It has an active philosophy with a multiplicity of objectives. And together they are oriented and aimed at destroying and tearing down this country. I don't think there's any argument about that. I mean, isn't that why the people that support the Democrat Party support it? Because they want this country changed and transformed. They want aspects of it they don't like destroyed. So, you people can get all upset at me out there, but all I happen to be doing is properly identifying you. The Democrat Party is the most destructive force in America. The Democrat Party is hell-bent on destroying this economy. And they're well on their way. They have ownership of it. We're 7 years in. We've got 94 million Americans not working. And then they lie and tell us the unemployment rate's 4.9%. We have people's hours, people who are working, their hours are being pared down because of the onerous, punitive nature of Obamacare to American business. The U.S. military is, it's one of the last institutions left that still it hasn't fully, totally been corrupted, and they're on the way with that. It's in their crosshairs. And there's not even any pretense of it. They're not even trying to camouflage it anymore. In the old days, liberalism, they didn't even want that word used. That's why they came up with the word progressive, because liberalism was a death knell. Now, not so much. There's no pretense. The media doesn't hide their liberalism. The Democrat Party openly advocates it. Free market capitalism is the enemy. The system that has produced the greatest standard of living in the history of the world is under assault in this country on the basis that it somehow is unfair and rigged. And so it's got to be blown up and replaced with what? A bunch of neophyte, no experience, little leftists commanding and controlling the economy and redistributing everything in what they claim is fairness. But the real objective is to keep everybody dependent on them and government, thereby ensuring massive landslide election victories every 2 or 4 years. You have to make free market capitalism the enemy. You have to make rugged individualism the enemy. You have to make self-reliance the enemy. They're on the way. They've been doing it for my entire life and longer. Massive taxes, tax increases. Did you see the stories? And they were abundant before the Super Bowl. How Cam Newton was the focal point, but it was any of the players. Cam Newton paid more in taxes than he earned playing the Super Bowl because of the tax structure. California took their share. The feds took their share. North Carolina, where he lives, took their share. And then Medicare and Medicaid, separate taxes, FICA took their share. I think the winning share, the losing share for a Super Bowl team, I'm making this up because I don't remember, let's say $100,000 or something like that. It's close to that. Cam Newton's income tax on that income added to his income the rest of the year meant that he would pay more taxes on that income than what he earned. It's why I don't go to New York anymore. I learned this way back in the 90s. It costs me X number of thousands of dollars a day to work in New York. So I left New York in 1997. I am audited every year, nevertheless. What they want to determine is how many days I work in New York every year. That's why I don't. I don't want there to be any dispute about it. But there still is. I still have to prove 14 different ways where I am every day of the year. They can claim, no, you worked 50 days in New York. No, I wasn't there once. Well, we say you were. You have to prove you're not. So hire a lawyer, go prove I wasn't there. It can take years. When this all started, the way to settle this was to agree on a per diem amount per day that I worked in New York, and that's exactly how sports teams are taxed. When the Los Angeles Dodgers go to New York, they pay New York tax for the number of days they're playing games there. When the New York Mets or Yankees go to California, same thing, and it's this way all over the country now. It's called a duty day tax. And it's these states wanting their share of whatever portion of a player's income was derived on the days those guys were in town playing. Well, as it worked out for Cam Newton, He had to pay more in California, additional North Carolina, and all these other incremental taxes. It all added up. The income he made from the Super Bowl blew his taxable income up to an amount greater than what he was paid for working that day. There were all kinds of stories about it. It's gotten so bad that some players are determining where they're going to live in free agency now, what teams are going to choose. They're choosing teams or places to live where there are no state income tax. That's how they escape all this. My point is, we owe this to the Democrat Party. It was, what was that governor's name? David Patterson. Some reporter at a press conference told him, Limbaugh left New York because of your tax policy. He said, really? Well, if I'd have known we could have gotten to Limbaugh earlier, I would have raised taxes sooner. And the chuckles came from the media, and they laughed and so forth. But the Democrat Party is right in there raising everybody's taxes, taking away money from people who earn it and produce it to redistribute it to others. It's all part of their transformation and their economic reorganization, which I call destructive. And last night, the debate between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders was the equivalent of quack doctors extolling the wonders of untreated cancers. These people actually have the gall to sing the praises of the Cuban healthcare system to us. But it's not just Cuba's third-rate healthcare system that the Democrats want. They want the whole 9 yards. They want an economy-killing, centralized government that claims a monopoly on virtue, compassion, and intelligence. Promises of revolution and prosperity, while the middle class craters and careers are transformed into part-time jobs. And that is the history of the last 7 years under Barack Obama. And then you add to that students graduating with 6-digit student loan debt. The opportunity with worthless degrees that are not going to help them recoup what they've spent for their education and then get ahead. Last night was a naked power grab by two unaccomplished old dithering fools, both nearing their dotage, if you ask me, justified by lie after lie after lie when it comes to mathematics and economics, a complete ignorance of history. It almost forced me to turn TV off last night. I couldn't handle the lies anymore. One lie after another. It became intolerable. John Podhoretz in the New York Post has written about it. Apparently we should get on a boat and leave America ASAP. The two candidates for the Democrat nomination spent most of 2 hours arguing over who was the better diagnostician of the moral diseases, ideological calamities, spiritual infirmities, racial injustices, and downright evils that are being visited upon the suffering 320 million who have found themselves, through no fault of their own, trapped between two oceans in a dystopian, oligarchic hell they call America. That's exactly how this country was portrayed last night and the previous debate and every other Democrat debate or every Democrat campaign appearance. This place is portrayed as hell on earth, brought to you by George W. Bush, the Republicans, and the Iraq War in the modern incarnation. The America they want to save us from, the America from which they want to liberate us, is not George W. Bush's. It's Barack Obama's. But they don't ever say that. They blame the Koch brothers. Nobody knows who the Koch brothers are. The Koch brothers don't do diddly squat. The Koch brothers never enforced a regulation on anybody. The Koch brothers never raised anybody's taxes. The Koch brothers never sent anybody's kids off to war. The Koch brothers haven't done diddly squat because they can't. They're not in government. Government does all of this. But in the Democrat Party world, it's the evils of private citizens who are wreaking and meting out all this havoc, and it's the government ever expanding with more power to dominate and control, which must come in and clean out the vipers and the cesspool and the landfill and the utter sewer and garbage that this country is. And I can only take so much of it for so long, particularly when I'm listening to people who have been in positions of power when all these complaints they register have occurred. Bernie Sanders says there is massive despair all over this country. And there is massive despair, but not the massive despair felt by the majority of Americans is despair over what the Democrat Party has done in its quest, its destructive quest in this country. I got to take a brief time out. You sit tight. We'll be back. That's my explanation for it. And I can keep going if you want me to. No, I didn't forget. Here it is. 10 years ago, Al Gore said that if we didn't do whatever he said we had to do, that the end of the earth would have happened by now. January 27th was 10 years. It was going to be over. Earth was going to be largely uninhabitable. Sea levels would have risen to the point that New York City would be partially underwater. It would have been just an abject, utter disaster. And, of course, nothing of the kind has happened because they're all lying. They don't. This is also getting tiresome. All they've got is computer models. And young people who think that they're scientists and love sci-fi and high-tech and think Elon Musk is a god. They all believe this garbage because they think it's high-tech super science. And they want it to all be true. They're young liberals, and these are people that are convinced of the dystopian future. And that's all part of it. But now the sea levels are not rising. Just like the heat didn't happen. Remember the story we had about 3 weeks ago? The ocean ate the heat. The heat was there. The last 15 years where there hasn't been any temperature rise, it did. The heat rose. Just the oceans ate it. Somehow the heat ended up 700 meters below the surface. And this is, folks, this is going to make sea level rise even worse because that hot heat 700 feet down that the ocean ate is going to boil the salt water, warm it up out there. It's going to be worse than fresh water boiling over. And it's going to make the sea level rise even worse than we thought like 10 or 20 or 30 years from now. Like, wow. The ocean ate the heat. No explanation of how. Just some scientist, some laboratory claimed to have discovered it. Okay, so now what to do? 10 years came and went, and we're still here and thriving. At least the destruction predicted hasn't happened. The sea levels have not risen, so what do we do? Well, the French news agency reports that the reason the sea level rise didn't happen was because there has been so much drought in the last 10 years that the earth has parched and it has become so dry that it is soaking up water. It's soaking up rainwater. It's soaking up snowpack. It's soaking up the water in aquifers. And it's because the earth is basically just dying of thirst, which is part and parcel of all the heat that has happened with global warming. Satellite measurements over the past 10 years show for the first time the Earth's continents have soaked up and stored an extra 3.2 trillion tons of water in soil, lakes, underground aquifers. This is in the journal Science, so of course it's irrefutable. It's in a journal called Science. The Earth is so thirsty. It somehow got so parched and so dry, it soaked up all the water. And therefore, the sea level rise has been temporarily delayed until the Earth has soaked up more water than it can absorb and everything is mud. Then the sea levels will start rising. They say this has temporarily slowed the rate of sea level rise by about 20%. J.T. Rieger, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA. We always assumed that people's increased reliance on groundwater for irrigation and consumption was resulting in a net transfer of water from the land to the ocean. But No, that transfer from land to ocean didn't happen because the earth is so dry. Who knew? And they cloud this stuff or present this stuff in science as even doubly insulting. But here's John in Daytona Beach, Florida. John, glad you waited. You're next on Open Line Friday. Hello.
Hey, Rush Mega Dittos, long-time listener, back from the beginning of your show, and long-time conservative. And I'd like to just mention my son's a lieutenant colonel in the Army, lifetime listener, also lifetime conservative. Real proud of him. Anyway, my reason for calling, listen to Debbie Wasserman Schultz this morning on Fox News making excuses for the purpose of these superdelegates.
Yeah.
To make it fair to Hillary Clinton because there are so many white people in Iowa and in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be fair, right? That's what they claimed. And but yet it makes me think of the superdelegates situation when she gets to South Carolina where she claims that's her firewall that's made up of so many minorities that's going to give her an advantage. So how is that fair to Bernie Sanders? If the superdelegates give her
no. See, that's no. You're listening too carefully to them. This is what you're the kind of guy that the Democrats hate because you actually listen to what they say, and then you're able to throw it back at them. You're not supposed to think about any of this. You're supposed to. Oh, South Carolina's a firewall. New Hampshire and Iowa, lily white, not fair to Hillary. That's why we needed the superdelegates. South Carolina, that's where we make it fair. Wait, no, you just made it fair with the superdelegates. What do you mean she's got a firewall? Isn't this unfair to Bernie? Well, no, Bernie's not going to win this anyway. We can't tell you that, but Bernie's not going to win it anyway. It's all been structured so that Hillary wins no matter what Bernie does. Don't ask me anymore. That's the way to deal with it. Here's Gary in Shelby, Michigan. Great to have you, sir. I'm glad you waited.
Hey, Rush, Democrat dittos to you or debate dittos. We watched the other night, played your drinking game. My wife's so mad she'll never let me watch another one because I drank all her wine. But
okay.
Other than that, hey, listen, Rush, to my point, I've been a long-time listener since 1992. I love you, and I've always heard you say you never endorse a candidate during the primaries, and I've never questioned that. That's your prerogative. But I've also heard you say on a lot of occasions that you'll let us know when it's time to panic. And if we get the wrong person elected this time, is it time to panic? We have a true conservative in this race. You've said it many times that Ted Cruz is the only true conservative we have. And if we don't elect him, I think it's time to panic. What do you think?
Well, that's tough. Because what I've always meant by that is that it's time to give up on the country. And I don't think we're there. There's too many of us out here, Gary, to just cede the country to these people. Now, on the endorsement side, can you hang on while I play a couple sound bites here? Because it dovetails with exactly what you're asking about here. Gary, don't hang up, no matter what you hear here, because I'm coming back to you when this is finished. We've got Megyn Kelly on her show on Fox last night. And by the way, I get grief every year on this no endorsement policy. And today there's an editorial at Investors Business Daily praising me for what I said about Cruz, but claiming that it's too late. If I'd have said this weeks ago, that it might have mattered. But since I didn't say it weeks ago and only said it this week, that it's too late. I'm flattered that so many people think that I could determine who wins and loses these things. That's what I reject by saying I don't endorse. Now, the thing about this is, folks, one of the things that I've always, from the first day of this program, and this program in particular because it was national, if it worked, it was going to be a big deal. And one of the things that I have always striven, whatever to do, is keep myself in perspective. You hear complaints that the moderators become the story in the debate or something similar. I never wanted to do that, and I never get lost contemplating how important I am or how big I am, because I've just made a concerted effort to keep what I do and who I am in perspective, so I don't get lost in ego, become insufferable. And I could give you names of people who have become, they're out there now, what I never have wanted to become. Not endorsing is made up of many theories and strategies. And in no particular order, one of them is, I don't know these people that well, and I've got no control over how they're going to run their campaigns, and I've got no control over whether they're going to stay true to who they say they are or not. The last thing I'm going to do is tell you, by virtue of endorsing somebody, that you can give it up for them too, months and months ago, only to find, say at this point in time or next week or whatever, they totally bail and become something else. I don't want, since I can't control them doing that or not doing that, I'm not going to invest myself in it. I don't control them. I'm not part of their campaigns. I'm not part of their staff, advisory or otherwise. In addition to that, there is this business of not wanting to trample on the event. I'm not running. I look at newspaper endorsements and I read all these people that do, and I think they're full of it. To think they're bigger than the process. The process is where we determine who wins. It's up to the candidates to win, not me or anybody else. Now, I'm flattered that somebody or people think that I could be the margin of victory somebody, but I don't look at myself that way. And if I ever did, you would not be able to put up with me. I would make Max Headroom look like a dwarf. And I vowed never to do that. But I'm not running. Therefore, I'm not going to act as though I'm the guy with all the answers and these people are all doofuses and idiots. I will tell you what I think of the process as it goes by and what I think of the people as it goes by, the same as you. You are free to agree with me or not. But I have never. We get to the general, it's a whole different thing. Then that becomes our team versus their team. And that's a whole different thing. There are any number of people that I think running now who can beat whoever the Democrats throw up there. And it's not, contrary to people who might wish me to utilize whatever power they think I have, I do not think in those terms. So when I said what I said about Ted Cruz, it was because it was important to say at the time. There were Republicans that were beginning to cave, and they were trying to tell everybody how conservative they were, but yet they were trying to sidle up to Democrats or one thing or another. And one thing I felt confident saying is that Cruz wouldn't. I don't mean to be putting down Rubio when I say that Cruz is the closest thing to Reagan we've ever had. It doesn't mean that Rubio is no good, and it doesn't mean that Trump is no good. I also said yesterday, at the same time I said what I said about Cruz, I don't think Trump is ideological. That's not a criticism. Not everybody looks at things through the ideological prism like I do. Or maybe like you do. Like I said about Trump, when he looks at Chuck Schumer, he doesn't see a raging commie leftist. He sees a New Yorker that he has to get through, go around, deal with, whatever in his business. It's better to be friends with the guy than not. But in politics, that all changes. But Trump doesn't look at people that way. And it's not a criticism. Everybody in this race is different. Trump is attracting a wide variety of people. His coalition is made up of people above and beyond those who call themselves conservative. There's this new group out there called alt-conservatives, which are basically a bunch of young populists, when you get right down to it. They're not doctrinaire conservatives ideologically, but they are right-wingers on enough, but they're also populists and nationalists. And they think conservatism doesn't go far enough in some cases. So it's made up. He's got a broad-based coalition out there. Now, this all came up last night on Megyn Kelly on Fox. She had Dr. Krauthammer on. And by the way, when I pronounce his name that way, it's because how Henry Kissinger pronounced it to me one time. He asked me, "Did you see the Krauthammer column?" I said, "No, which one?" "There's the Krauthammer column in the Washington Post this morning." No, I didn't see it. Ever since he said that, I just... When it comes time to mention Krauthammer's name, Dr. Krauthammer. It's just my Kissinger impersonation. Don't mean anything by it. It's going to be clever. Anyway, Megyn Kelly, 2 sound bites here with Dr. Krauthammer, talking about Cruz, me, and what it all means.
What's so fascinating about Trump is, and Rush Limbaugh was making this point, that he's not ideological. What Limbaugh was saying, he's not a Republican, but he's not a Democrat. He's not an ideologue at all. He was saying, if you are an ideologue, if you are going for the most conservative guy, you go for Cruz. Trump's got sort of a different group. I'll let Limbaugh say it in his own words here. Listen.
If conservatism is your bag, if conservatism is the dominating factor in how you vote, there is no other choice for you in this campaign than Ted Cruz, because you are exactly, this is the closest in our lifetimes we have ever been to Ronald Reagan. And I've heard people, you left out Rubio. No, we're talking here about this other fact. Rubio's a good guy. Don't misunderstand. This is why, another reason why I don't endorse. Because for everybody I would endorse, and 90 others would get ticked. Can't make everybody happy. Here's Dr. Gradema of the Washington Post responding to what I just brilliantly had said moments ago.
I would disagree in the sense that I think Rubio is an authentic conservative. Bush is kind of a reformist conservative. All of them, I think, would be comparable to Reagan in 1980. There are several candidates who are conservative. But I do agree that Trump is not a conservative. I think, he would probably reject that, but I think the record would show he's a Trumpist. He's kind of a what the hellist, meaning, these guys have not succeeded. As he said in a tweet, I think today, you elected these guys to the Congress. They made the promises. They haven't kept them. And therefore, he's coming in to solve problems. And he's not a traditional conservative.
Okay, Gary, hang on. I got to go to commercial break next. We'll be back and discuss this. Okay, now we bring Gary back into this in Shelby, Michigan. Now, you've heard all of that. How would you react to it, based on the question that you asked me?
Well, Rush, first of all, I really respect your humility. A lot of people wouldn't believe you're a humble man, but you're a very humble person, and you don't think you make that big of a difference. But I also know that the only true principled conservative with the Constitution ingrained in his brain is Ted Cruz. And what concerns me is the possible four Supreme Court nominations in the next 4 to 8 years. We're barely hanging on by a thread there right now. It's 5-4, could go either way.
That's true. I mean, that's ball game kind of true.
That's time to panic if that happens. If we get somebody, and I'm talking anybody but, because I've heard some of the nominations suggestions from the other candidates, and they're scary. Ted Cruz is the only person that will stand up and use his political will to put the right people in the court, and he'll be damned if he doesn't.
Let me illustrate it. When I said what I said yesterday, I got some email reaction. When I said what I said about Trump, that he's not a conservative, and that Dr. Gradema thinks that he might disagree. Trump might think he is, but my point is Trump, I don't think is, not like you and I are. That doesn't mean he's not going to do the right things, in my mind, by any stretch. But my illustration that when Trump sees Chuck Schumer, he doesn't see a raving leftist. But I think he should. Given what Trump believes on immigration, Chuck Schumer is in the way. If Trump really believes this stuff about building a wall and sending them home and send them back and make the immigration system legal again, he's got to realize Chuck Schumer is a pro-amnesty leader. And now I don't worry that Ted Cruz will not see Schumer that way. That's all I mean by Trump not being ideological. And a lot of people aren't, folks. It's been one of the most frustrating things about doing this program for 27 years. I've always said, I'm blue in the face, that if we could have educated, we tried here, to get more and more people just attuned to the ideological identifications of people, that we could have spared ourselves so damn much trouble. If people knew what liberalism meant to their lives, if they really knew what it meant, not Democrats equal compassion and caring and equality, if they knew the destructive nature of it, if they knew the reason they can't get a job is liberalism, rather than Bush and the recession, which is what liberals tell them, you realize how many people still think that the economic problems today are Bush's fault? Partly because the media gets away with lying about it, and the Democrats do, but it's also due to the fact that people are not educated to the realities of liberalism, and they do not understand the direct hands-on role Barack Obama and the Democrats have had. in the economic destroy. How do you still blame Bush 8 years ago? But they are. We still haven't recovered from the Bush recession. That's what they tell themselves. You want to talk about frustrating. And I've always thought the cure for this is ideological education. But hell, when the Republican Party won't even go there. Okay, folks, that's it. Hope you have a great weekend, whatever you intend to do. Hope it works out well for you. We'll be back here on Monday to discuss the Republican debate in South Carolina on Saturday night. CBS has it? CBS has it. So it's not Wolf Blitzer. Okay, whatever, we'll find it. Whoever's got it. See you Monday.